All right, we're going to finish up chapter 5. This is our fourth page of notes. Early Greek sculptures were rigid, perhaps imitating the Egyptians. Later on, they became more lifelike, idealistic. The only Greek paintings to survive are on vases and other pottery. You don't see a lot of murals or pictures, paintings inside buildings. There are a few, but you really don't see much. The majority of what we see for art and also to gather information about some of the activities were on these vases. They use different styles. This is a red on black. No, this is black on red. And then there's also the red on black. But this is tan on black, black on tan. Anyway, different forms that they used. Lots of different events depicted on the pottery. The most important Greek contribution to literature was in the field of drama. These evolved out of their religious festivals. The greatest of Athenian playwrights was or were Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. So we've got these two here. Those are tragic masks. All three of those that I mentioned wrote tragedies. However, there were some that wrote comedies like Aristophanes. And these amphitheaters, the way they were built, a person could stand here. Now, of course, knowing that there was no microphones, that you had to be quiet to hear, I'm sure the Greeks were very quiet so they could hear. And people probably got mad if they weren't. But, you know, you could stand at the bottom and talk in a normal speaking voice, obviously not whispering, and most of the people there would be able to hear you because of the acoustics. Herodotus, known as the father of history, he stressed the importance of research. Another man named Thucydides showed the need to avoid bias. And today in our newspapers and news channels, that's really all they do. They are very biased. They only talk about the things that are important to their political party, and it's really frustrating. Both of these writers set standards for future historians. Okay, on to our next section. This next section is talking about Alexander and the Hellenistic Age. So we have Philip, who is the king of Macedonia. Macedonia is this area outlined in black. And he built a superb army and brought all of Greece under his control. Okay. Philip's son Alexander, he was an experienced soldier with his father's ambitions, and those ambitions were that he would conquer the Persian Empire, which he later did. It says he conquered the Persian Empire, and he was known as Alexander the Great. So again, the Persian Empire over into this area, Iran, Iraq, got as far as India, and a lot of influence along the way. This is the Lighthouse at Alexandria. Many cities were named after him along the way. Philip hired Aristotle to tutor his son Alexander, and after Philip was assassinated, his wife Olympias put her own son Alexander on the throne. So that's how he came to power. I'm guessing that Philip had other wives or other women that he had children with, and the next one in line was not Alexander. But his wife Olympias must have been a powerful woman, had influence, and was able through some means to get her son Alexander to the throne. So the Hellenistic world, this was a period in Greece following Alexander's death, which blended both Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian influences. And so some examples of how they were influenced by him. Alexander married a Persian woman. Again, I mentioned the Farrell's Lighthouse at Alexandria. That's pretty interesting, 440 feet tall. That's amazing, and it eventually burnt down. It was made of wood. But that was the Egyptian. There was some influence there. And then many opportunities were given to women in India. That was the case in Greece, that women had a lot of influence and opportunity. And so those three areas combined with Greece made up the Hellenistic world. And again, you can see the area that was part of the Hellenistic world. And this is Greece today, so Egypt, Turkey, over into almost to Afghanistan and then India. All right, Stoicism. There was some political turmoil during the Hellenistic period. Stoicism was a new school of philosophy created by a man named Zeno. So a new, again, school of thought, or whatever you want to call it. But it urged people to avoid desires and disappointments by accepting whatever life brought. This little phrase here, it says, if one does not know which port they are sailing to, then no wind is favorable. Stoicism taught high moral standards, like protecting the rights of fellow humans. So, you know, life is going to be kind of disappointing. It goes back to what Buddha taught with his enlightenment. You know, life is full of sorrow, and if we worry about it so much, then we're not going to be happy. But if we kind of accept it, then move on, then we hopefully will be a little bit happier. Okay, again, just some little brief information about some other Greek people that were great scholars and inventors. Pythagoras derived a formula to calculate a right triangle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And little comic there, you may be right, Pythagoras, but everybody's going to laugh if you call it a hypotenuse. And I'm sure most of the students are better at math than I am. I always said is when you start putting letters in there, that's when I get confused. Euclid wrote the Elements, which is the basis of modern geometry. So again, just little brief captions about each person. Okay, the next one, Aristarchus. He argued about the heliocentric theory. We've talked about that one previously. The heliocentric theory is the sun-centered solar system, and we know that's obviously not a theory today. But many people thought it was a theory because they felt like everything revolved around the Earth. And so most people didn't accept that theory for another 2,000 years. The next person, Eratosthenes, he showed the Earth as round. Again, another theory that was not widely accepted. Everybody thought it was flat. But you look at all of you look at the moon and the sun, and you can see that they're round. I don't know why that didn't apply and appeal to many more people. And he also calculated its correct circumference, which I thought was really amazing. To be able to do this with not being able to fly around it or to be away from it in any way. And so basically what he did, he was able to go down in a well. This is, if I remember correctly, the circumstances. And then he looked up at the sky at night. He was able to calculate and document the position of the stars. And I think he did this every day for a year, and noticed at the end of that year that they were back to the beginning. Then he knew how far away he was from Alexandria, and then with the sun and the angles, and again, using math, was able to calculate that. So pretty amazing feat, or very intelligent thing to do. Okay? I think this one's my favorite, and maybe most people, because he's the most famous of Hellenistic scientists. Archimedes applied the principles of physics to make inventions, and he mastered the use of the lever and pulley. And this picture here is showing or depicting a statement that he made. So he said, "Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I will move the world." And you think about it, that is so true. if it was possible for the long lever, and it would have to be very, very long and very strong, obviously, and if you had a place to be a fulcrum, and you could put that lever under the world, you could move it. He knew the physics behind everything, and if you think about it, if you have a book and you've got a fulcrum and you've got a ruler underneath it, you push down, you can raise the book. What happens if you put 50 books on it? Well, you're not going to be able to raise it, but if that lever is very long and very strong, pushing down, you could lift those 50 books. It's the same idea, and it's an amazing statement. As far as pulleys, in fact, let me go to the next one. So these are some things that he did. The corkscrew to move water from a lower to a higher elevation. There's a ship out in the sea, took a giant mirror, redirected it, was able to start a fire. This one here with pulleys, there's a ship out to sea, a number of pulleys, and then he was able to pull just his own power to pull that ship into shore. Another video I show the kids later that we talk about, they're building a trebuchet, and he is just demonstrating, and so he ties the rope onto himself up through the pulley. It goes down and up again and back down, and then he's holding the rope. And so he weighs 200 pounds. He pulls on it. He's pulling a lot of rope, but he's only having to pull 50 pounds because his 200 pounds is divided 4 ways. And so that's how the pulley works. It spreads the weight out over the different lines that are used. So the ship's weight is spread out over those different ropes. Okay, and the final one, Hippocrates. This is about 400 BC. Greek physician, studied causes and cures of illnesses, and his Hippocratic oath set ethical standards for doctors, which they take even today. Doctors swore to help the sick according to my ability and judgment, but never with a view to injury and wrong. Oh, let me just quickly mention something. So if doctors are wearing a pin, I think they get this maybe after they swear the Hippocratic oath, but it has the staff and the snake or serpent wrapped around it. That's on that symbol, so kind of a symbol for doctors. Okay, so that finishes up page 4 and also our chapter on Greek civilization, chapter 5. Thank you.